The darkness is spreading. It's all-consuming and it corrupts and contaminates every crevice and corner. It's going to take over the whole world unless a brave guardian, like yourself, can stop it. This is Darkest Doom, which was designed by Mario Zattini and published by GameStart Studio, who helped sponsor this video. Hi everybody, my name is Nick Murphy of the Brothers Murph, and we are here with BoardGameGeek. Well, the darkness is spreading and it's up to me to stop it, or maybe join it. So let's get this game down to the table and learn how to play Darkest Doom. Darkest Doom is a competitive game for 1 to 4 players with RPG elements. It is set in a dark fantasy setting inspired by 16th century Europe, and it's inhabited by anthropomorphized animals. Players will be taking on the role of guardians trying to survive for 9 days as the darkness tries to destroy the region of Batel. You are trying to survive. It's a race to the finish and there are multiple ways to win. Before we get into all that, let's go over the setup.
Place the game board in the center of the table. Place the Winter Mountain Mini in the middle with it facing either right or left. Place the 4 blood temples in these spots and the 4 citadels in these spots. Place 1 Heart of the High Priestess token on each Nightfall phase on the game rounds track here. Put the 8 creature target tokens inside the creature bag. Place the round marker next to the first Heart of the High Priestess token and the clear Darkest Doom tracker marker here. Shuffle the Dark Contamination cards, the Quest cards, and the Daily Fame cards and place them next to the game board. Place the Darkest Doom event map cards here. Take the 5 cards with this symbol out of the Darkest Doom event cards deck and place them to the side. They will be shuffled into this event deck in round 5. Shuffle the Creature Attack and Entry to the Black Lodge cards and place them upright in the Winter Mountain Mini. Shuffle the Spell cards, Equipment cards, Trap cards, and Encounter cards separately and place them next to the game board here. Place the various tokens, dice, and Dark Filament minis near the board. Place the player discs on space 0 on the Daily Fame track and a cube of each color near the Play Order track and near the Citadel's Alliance track. Place 1 Acolyte mini on space 6 of the matching Citadel's Alliance track. Now let's move on to the player setup. Each player will get a player board and can either choose a guardian or draw one at random. All the guardians have a special power. Every time Rowana suffers harm, they may pay 2 mana petals to suffer 1 less. If Tristram has at least 1 card in hand, they may discard their hand to gain 2 Daily Fame. In battles, Yurian can choose to roll 1 less die to gain 2 automatic hits, and Sela can suffer 1 harm to restore 1 action point. Players will then choose or randomly decide which blood temples are theirs. Gain 2 trap tokens and a quest marker token matching your color, and also gain 2 coins of destiny and place them here. Your Citadel activities card will go here and your Rites of the Blood Temple card will go here. Place your 3 domes on the 3 spaces on your Citadel activities card. Draw a quest card and place it here face down. Your starting stats are shown on your Guardian sheet here and are as follows: Melee, Witchcraft, Wisdom, and Health. You will place a cube on the Mana Petal vial equal to your Witchcraft stat and a cube on your Harm vial equal to your Health stat. You will then place 4 cubes on the stat spaces matching the starting stats of your Guardians. 1 will also go on a stat of your choosing that you would like to increase. Place 1 on one of the 3 relic spaces here and 1 last one on the space 0 of the action points track. Players will place their Guardians in their matching Blood Temple space, and that concludes the setup. Now let's get to the gameplay.
The game takes place over a maximum of 9 rounds representing 9 days. Now each round has a dawn and a nightfall phase. Let's start with the dawn phase.
In the very first dawn phase of the game, each player will roll the fate die to determine player order. Whoever rolls the highest is first, then play proceeds clockwise. In the dawn phase, players will draw cards. They will draw cards up to their hand limit, which is based on their wisdom stat, in this case 3. They can draw from any of the Citadel supply decks, traps, spells, or equipment. They will also draw 1 quest card if they do not have one. Starting in the second round, players may discard their entire hands of cards and draw a new one. If they do so, they will lose 1 Daily Fame. They may also do this with their quest card, losing 1 fame as well. After all players have drawn cards, the players will take their actions. There are a number of different actions players may do. Some of them are automatic or free, and some require action points to be spent. One of the main actions is moving. A guardian may move to an adjacent zone for 1 movement point unless they're moving into a mountain region, which costs 2. One of the main reasons for moving is to complete quests. Quest cards show a specific region the player would need to get to complete that quest. While on the way, if a player is within 4 zones of their quest destination, they may declare their quest for free. This will then put their quest marker on the location of their quest, and when they complete their quest, the player will gain 3 Daily Fame instead of the usual 1. When players reach their quest destination, they have completed their quest and will gain benefits. Whenever a quest card is gained, the player must immediately choose a stat they would like to increase and a relic they would like to gain, placing cubes to remind them which ones they're going for. When the player completes the quest, they will first roll the fate die to see if they have found a relic. In the middle of the quest card, there will be a plus or a minus symbol. This shows what the player needs to roll to gain the relic. They will be rolling against the stat that they are trying to increase, in this case, melee. A plus means they need to roll higher than their melee stat, and a minus means they need to roll lower. If they roll successfully, they will gain one relic of the chosen type. Note that a player may have a maximum of 3 relics at any time. After this is done, regardless of whether or not a relic was gained, the player will gain the stat increase and move the appropriate cube up 1 space. They will also gain 1 daily fame, or 3 if they declared their quest, and they will gain 1 coin of destiny. The player will then gain a new quest card. If the quest they just completed has a green book here, they will draw quest cards until a Battelle chapter quest is drawn, which has an orange book. When this is drawn, players will place one of the Battelle chapter tokens on the quest destination. When the player reaches this space, they will complete their quest. They will gain 2 daily fame and then flip the token over, and they can either discard 1 dark contamination card, restore 2 harm, or discard 1 white moth. Note that these quests may not be declared. This quest is now finished and discarded, and the player will gain a new quest.
Quests are a great reason to be moving around the board, but the spaces on the board aren't just empty regions, they may be activated.
Some of the spaces have automatic activations that happen when you enter them on top of the actions you can take while there. In the plains, you may discard 3 random cards to gain a coin of destiny, or if you already have a coin and at least 3 daily fame points, you may use one of the 3 abilities on your Citadel activities card, which we'll explain a little bit later. Note that this second action may only be done once per phase. The forest you will activate by spending 2 mana petals. You may either move to a non-mountain zone within 2 spaces of your location that has another player or creature, or you may discard 2 cards from your hand to draw 2 cards from the Citadel supplies deck. This second action may only be done once per phase. When entering a lake region, you will immediately restore 1 harm. You may then spend action points to restore 1 harm per action point spent, remembering to not exceed your maximum health. As mentioned before, mountains take 2 action points to move into. While in a mountain space, the player is immune to attacks from adjacent regions and ranged spells. While here, the player may spend 1 action point and 2 coins of destiny to play a trap card from their hand to a zone occupied by a creature or another player, and if the trap allows it, it will activate immediately. When leaving a mountain space, players are moving downhill, so they may move 2 zones for 1 action point. Though this may not be used to go into another mountain region, and if the player stops in the first zone to do an action, this extra movement is forfeited. The map is big, but players may take a shortcut through the Black Lodge. While in a Black Lodge space, players may spend 1 action point to draw an entry to the Black Lodge card, and once this is resolved, they may move to any other Black Lodge space on the map. When players draw an entry to the Black Lodge card, they will look at the bottom of the card and resolve it. The card will either have a plus or a minus on it. The player will roll the die and compare the result to the stat they are trying to increase through their quest card. Just like before, a plus means the player wants to roll higher than this stat, and a minus means they are trying to roll lower. The fate die may be modified by spending a coin of destiny, which can add a +1 or -1 to the result. Though if a moon icon is rolled, the player automatically fails and it cannot be modified. If the player passes this check, they do not have to activate the bottom of the card. If they fail, they must activate the bottom.
Okay, now I'm going to explain what the effects on these entry to the Black Lodge cards do. Now I'm stopping here to let you know that this is going to be a lot of explanation of a lot of different things. Now the entry to the Black Lodge cards aren't any more complicated than anything else, but many of the cards and events in this game do a lot of the same things. So at some point we have to go through all of those things. So now that's what we're gonna do. Let's get into it.
If this symbol here is on the cards, the players will generate dark pools. To do this, the active player will remove any dark pool tiles already on the board and flip over the next map event card. On this card, it will show 6 spaces where dark pools will need to be generated. The player will generate the dark pool closest to themselves first, placing it on the board face down. They will then place the rest of them going clockwise from there. We'll talk more about dark pools and how to get rid of them in a little bit. If a dawn eclipse symbol is shown, all citadels and blood temples next to a dark pool will gain 1 dark filament. Citadels and blood temples may have a maximum of 3 dark filaments. Dark pools activated in this way are removed. When this symbol is shown, you will generate creatures. You will place creatures on the corresponding symbols on the map event card, and when generating creatures, you will always place lightless beaters. These are the smallest of the 3 creatures evolutions, and you will place them in the same way you generated dark pools. There may be a maximum of 3 creatures on the board at any given time. If this symbol here is drawn, you will activate the lightless with a creature target token closest to the active player. But to explain that, we have to first talk about how creatures target things. Creatures will usually activate during the Nightfall phase, and when they activate, players will draw a creature target token from the corresponding bag for each lightless on the board. These tokens will show what the lightless is going to target, and if that target is unavailable for whatever reason, they will show what target they will go to next. The creature will target the color shown on the token. This symbol means they will target a citadel. This symbol means they will target a blood temple, and this symbol means they will target a guardian. If a Heart of the High Priestess token is drawn, the creature will evolve to the next level if one of those minis is available. Then the token will be flipped over and the creature will target normally. If an Eclipse token is drawn, players will activate a Dawn Eclipse in the same way we talked about a moment ago. So going back to the entry of the Dark Lodge card, this symbol means you will activate the lightless with a creature target token closest to the active player. For example, if this was the active player and this lightless was targeting this blood temple, this lightless was targeting this guardian, and this lightless was targeting this citadel, you would activate the lightless targeting the blood temple as it's the closest target to the active player. We will talk more about activating lightless creatures and how they move when we discuss the Nightfall phase. Entry to the Black Lodge cards may also cause you to discard your hand of cards, find 2 coins of destiny, or make you drop 2 coins of destiny. Okay, we're done with the entry to the Black Lodge cards. The path to the Winter Mountain spaces are how you get to the Winter Mountain in the middle of the board. When you move into this space, you will receive 1 Dark Contamination card. This space has no action that you can activate, but while in this zone, you are immune to traps, and traps can never be placed here. There are 2 entrances to the Winter Mountain. Each side is different, and each side holds a way that you can win the game. I'm actually going to talk about these spaces later when we talk about the different victory conditions for the game. The last 2 spaces on the board are the Blood Temples and the Citadels. The Blood Temples are the only spaces on the board that you cannot enter. The only way for you to enter a Blood Temple is for your character to die. When your character dies, you will be revived at your Blood Temple. You may, however, enter Citadels. When in a Citadel, you may gain that Citadel's alliance and take an action from the Citadel's activities card next to your board. While at a Citadel, you may also lose 1 daily fame point to draw 1 quest card. As mentioned, when you enter a space with a Citadel, you may gain that Citadel's alliance, and each Guardian can gain the alliance of up to 3 Citadels. You will do this with your daily fame points. When you enter the Citadel, you will move the corresponding cube up on its track equal to the daily fame points you currently have. If you move the cube up to the number 6 space, you will gain the Acolyte there and place it on your right of the Blood Temple card on the right side of your board. We'll talk more about what these Acolytes do a little bit later. You will then place one of your domes on the top of that Citadel to signify that it's allied with you. If another player is already allied with that Citadel, you need to have an equal to or higher number of daily fame points than them. If you do, you will take the alliance away from that player. If a player ever reaches the highest point of the daily fame track, they may choose one of their allied citadels and move the cube to the top of the track, which makes them an incorruptible ally of that citadel, and they can no longer lose this alliance. You may only be the incorruptible ally of 1 citadel. Having an allied citadel allows the player to take one of the 3 actions available on the Citadel activities card whenever they're in a zone with the Citadel. Players may take a number of actions equal to the amount of allied citadels they have at the time, and the same action may be taken multiple times. Let's quickly talk about these actions. The Encounters action allows you to draw 2 cards from the Encounter deck, drawing 1 more for each allied citadel you have. You will choose one and play it immediately or place it on your player board here. You will then shuffle the discarded cards back into the deck. Encounter cards will require you to use an action point to activate them, and they will do a number of different things from allowing the character to move, pick up cards, remove dark filaments from their blood temples, and much more. Relic Alchemy allows the player to discard 1 relic and choose one of the options, either gain 3 coins of destiny, remove 1 white moth, or remove 1 dark filament in a citadel or blood temple and gain 2 daily fame points. The last action is a Carriage action, which allows the player to move to an unoccupied plains zone within 2 zones of your current location. If you take an action when at this new zone, the action costs 1 additional action point. Okay, so that is all of the locations on the board. On their turns, player may also play Citadel supply cards. There are 3 different Citadel supply cards: equipment cards, spell cards, and trap cards. To play an equipment card, you will need to either pay Coins of Destiny, Elder's Urn relics, or you will need to gain a Dark Contamination card. When you play an equipment card, it will go onto the left side of your board here, and you may have 2 in play at a time. When the card is played, you will place 2 decay tokens on the card, and when you activate the card, you will remove one of these decay tokens. Once there are no more decay tokens on the card, that card is immediately discarded. Equipment cards may allow you to heal, move, or most often help you attack harder or block better in battle. You will play spell cards mostly by spending your mana pedal tokens, which are tracked here, and are refreshed at the beginning of every Nightfall phase. Many spells are used during battles and can really change up a fight. Some spells can be used outside of battles and will often have the keyword ranged. A Guardian has 1 range for every 2 stats they have on their Witchcraft stat. Remember though that Guardians and creatures in mountain zones cannot be targeted by ranged actions. So this Guardian here has a range of 3 and can reach any of these zones. The last kind of Citadel card is Trap cards. Trap cards cost 1 coin of destiny, and when they are played, the player will take the corresponding trap token at the bottom of their board and place it in their chosen zone. Unless otherwise stated, the trap will activate when a guardian or creature enters that zone, though the player may spend 2 coins of destiny to activate the trap if there is a guardian or creature adjacent to the zone. Note that activating traps is one of the only things that can be done on other players' turns. The traps are resolved differently depending on who the trap is sprung on. If it is sprung by a creature and the card's requirements are met, you will then resolve the card's effect. If the creature dies due to this effect, you will gain 3 daily fame points regardless of the creature's evolution level. If the trap is sprung on another player, the player must make a check to try and overcome the trap. They will draw a Dark Contamination card and roll a number of Crimson Fate power dice equal to their Wisdom stat. They will be trying to roll the same symbols that are at the top of the Dark Contamination card. How many symbols they need to roll depends on how far along the game is. If it is round 1 through 3, they will need to roll the first 3 symbols on the card. If it's rounds 4 through 6, they will need to roll the first 4 symbols on the card. And if it's rounds 7 through 9, they will need to roll all 5 symbols on the card. If a player fails to do so, the card's effect will take place. These are the Crimson Fate power dice, and players will be rolling them at various times throughout the game. Anytime these are being rolled, players can discard Citadel supply cards from their hand to change a die face to the symbol shown in the top left corner of the card. Anytime a moon symbol is rolled on a Crimson Fate die, the marker on the Darkest Doom track moves forward and the space that it lands on will activate. Note that the Darkest Doom marker still moves and activates even if that Crimson Fate die was modified to something else. Though if the die was changed to a moon, the Darkest Doom marker does not move. The marker moves spaces equal to the amount of moon faces rolled, and then the effect on that space will be multiplied by the amount of moon faces rolled. These spaces here allow the Crimson Fate dice results to be changed to one of the 2 available icons without having to discard a card. This symbol causes the Citadel closest to the player who rolled the die to receive a Dark Filament, and this symbol does the same thing but with the closest Blood Temple. This symbol causes the lightless creature closest to the player who rolled the die to evolve to the next iteration if possible. This symbol here causes the player who rolled the dice to suffer 1 harm. And finally, the Dawn Eclipse symbol works the same way as before, with all the Citadels and Blood Temples adjacent to a Dark Pool receiving 1 Dark Filament. Speaking of Dark Pools, players can remove Dark Pools by going into zones that have them. Dark Pool tokens resolve like trap tokens. When the player enters a zone with a Dark Pool, they must draw a Dark Contamination card, and then they will roll a number of Crimson Fate dice equal to their Wisdom stat, and then they will check the symbols against the series of symbols on the Dark Contamination card the same way they would do for a trap card. If the player succeeds, the Dark Pool token is removed with no ill effects. If they fail, the Dark Pool token is flipped over and will activate. Dark Pool tokens either cause the player to suffer 1 harm, generate creatures in the same way we talked about earlier, or cause the player to draw another Dark Contamination card. If the check is failed, the Dark Pool token is still removed.
We've talked a lot about these Dark Contamination cards, but what do they do? Nothing. They're just there to gunk up your hand. Remember, your hand limit is equal to your Wisdom stat, so you don't want it full with Dark Contamination cards.
Players may activate prayers on their Rites of the Blood Temple card on the right side of their board. This may only be done during the Dawn phase, and players must have either Acolytes or White Moths on their card to activate this card, and each prayer may only be used once per Dawn phase. The prayer to the Guardian action allows the player to remove 1 Dark Contamination card from a target player for each Acolyte you activate. The Prayer for Batel cards needs 2 acolytes and allows the player to remove 1 dark filament from your blood temple and gain 2 daily fame. And lastly, the Curse of the Moths may only be used if you have a white moth on your card, and will move 1 dark filament from your blood temple to another for each moth you activate. While in a lake zone, players can discard Spirit Lantern relics to summon and take control of the Lake Ghost. When the Lake Ghost is summoned, the player will place their mini inside of the Lake Ghost mini and place a player marker of their color on the bottom of the Lake Ghost space. When fighting with the Lake Ghost, the player will get +1 to its attacks and shields for every Lantern relic you spend to summon it. As the Lake Ghost, you cannot enter citadels, you are not allowed to have relics, but you can attack creatures and other players from adjacent zones just like a creature does. If your Guardian dies, the ghost dissolves and can be summoned by another player.
Okay, so we're almost done with what people can do on their turns, but we saved the best for last, battling.
As I'm sure you could have guessed, there is battling in this game. Whenever a Guardian enters a zone that is occupied by another Guardian or a creature, they will begin a battle. Note that many things can happen in a zone, and if the player would like to do multiple things, they will always go in this order: battle, then dark pools, then traps, and then zone activations. When fighting another Guardian, the players may play spell cards before the physical fight. The player with the highest witchcraft stat goes first, and then they will alternate until both players pass and move on to rolling the dice and smacking each other with swords. Remember that spell cards will say whether or not they can be used in a battle and will usually require a certain amount of mana petals to be spent to be used. Once all spells have been cast, players will then roll dice equal to their melee stat and then compare the results. A sword symbol and a priestess symbol are both hits. A dawn symbol is a hit if the battle is taking place in the dawn phase, and a nightfall symbol is a hit if the battle is taking place during the nightfall phase. A shield blocks 1 hit. And lastly, a moon symbol moves the marker on the Darkest Doom track, which will then activate as we discussed earlier in the teach. The difference between successful and blocked hits determines the number of harm a Guardian will gain. After the dice are rolled, players may play more spells following the initiative order given by the witchcraft stat. At the end of the battle, if no one dies, whoever was attacked must move to an adjacent zone. If a character does die, place the dead Guardian in their blood temple, and the prevailing Guardian will gain 3 daily fame. When a player's harm supply runs out, their character is dead, and they will have to discard 1 relic if able, and then they will revive in their blood temple. If they were the active player when they died, this will end their turn. The character's harm and mana petal supplies are restored when they are reborn at their blood temple unless the blood temple has 3 dark filaments. In this case, their mana petal supply is fully restored, but they only restore 1 harm. When a character dies, they will lose 3 daily fame and they will receive a white moth, which must be placed on one of the 3 spaces on the right of the blood temple card. If acolytes occupy all the spaces, 1 must be discarded and removed from the game. As long as there are white moth tokens on a player's temple card, they cannot gain acolytes, and players start their dawn phase with -1 daily fame for each white moth on their card. Fighting creatures works much in the same way as fighting other Guardians. Creatures do not cast spells, however, so there is no initiative order for spells, so players can cast as they wish. Though if it is after the 5th round and this symbol is showing on the board and the creature's attack card has the same symbol at the top of their card, this will activate before the player can cast any spells. If at the end of the fight the creature has not died and a player engages that same creature again, the harm it suffered in the previous fight does not carry over. When a creature attacks, it will draw a creature attack card. These symbols indicate the creature's evolution level. If it is a lightless beater, it will activate this column. If it's a lightless hunter, it will activate this column. And if it's the leader of the hunt, the final evolution, it will activate this column. This column is for one of the victory conditions, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. This row shows how much damage the creature will do, and this row shows how much health the creature has. This row here shows what will happen if the creature dies. If the player defeats the creature, they will gain 3 daily fame points for killing a lightless beater, 4 points for hunters, and 5 points for the leader of the hunt. They will then draw another attack card to see if the creature drops anything in their death. They will then look at the bottom row of that creature's evolution and activate it. The creature can drop coins of destiny, trigger a dawn eclipse, generate dark filaments in a citadel, or generate dark filaments in a blood temple.
Okay, so that is the dawn phase. Once all players have taken their turns, we will move on to the nightfall phase. But don't worry, this part of the explanation will be much shorter because players can activate again during this phase, but all the actions are the same, so we don't need to go through them all again. So let's get into the nightfall phase.
At the beginning of the nightfall phase, players will restore their mana petals up to their witchcraft level. Then it's the Darkest Doom's turn. First, players will remove the next Heart of the High Priestess token and add it to the creature target bag. If it's the start of the 5th round, they will shuffle the Echo of the Darkness cards into the Darkest Doom event card deck. Then they will flip the Darkest Doom event card and the Darkest Doom map event card. The top of the Darkest Doom event card will tell you what time this event is taking place in, either the past or the present. Then these symbols here will show you what is going to be generated from this event. This symbol generates dark pools in the same way we talked about earlier, and this symbol generates creatures in the same way we talked about earlier. This symbol generates dark filaments in citadels. You will place one dark filament token in the citadel closest to the first player. If there are multiple citadels equidistant from the first player, you will place the token in the citadel with the most filaments. If there's still a tie, the first player chooses which citadel gets the filament. If a citadel ever has 3 dark filaments, it's considered contaminated and takes 2 action points to move into. This symbol generates dark filaments and blood temples in the same way. After generating darkness, players will then activate the event card. They will follow the description on the card. Some of these events will be immediate and some will be ongoing throughout the round. At the bottom of the event card, there may be a timeline indication. If this is here when drawing event cards in the next round, you will draw cards until you find an event that matches that timeline. In this case, an event card from the past. After the event card is resolved, the creatures will activate. As stated earlier, you will draw a creature target token from the creature target bag for each lightless on the board, starting with the creature closest to the first player and proceeding clockwise. Once a creature's target is found, creatures will have 3 movement actions available to reach their target. When moving towards their target, creatures ignore obstacles and always take the shortest route possible by using the entries to the Black Lodge zones. When a creature enters this zone, you will draw an entry to the Black Lodge card and check the moon icons at the very top of the card and move the marker on the Darkest Doom track equal to the number of moons present on the card and activate it normally. You will ignore the bottom of the card. Creatures cannot end their movement in a zone with another mini, and if they would have to, they will engage in battle with that mini instead, even if that character was not their target. Unlike Guardians, creatures do not have to be in the same zone to attack their target. They can attack their targets from adjacent zones. If the creature does not need all of their movement to reach their target, any excess movement is lost. Attacking a Guardian works in the same way we've already discussed, but creatures can target and attack citadels and blood temples as well. If they attack these, they will contaminate the target with dark filaments. Lightless beaters will inflict 1 dark filament, hunters will inflict 2 dark filaments, and leaders of the hunt will inflict 3 dark filaments. If the citadel or blood temples are already engaged by another creature or are already fully contaminated, that creature will choose the next target on the creature target token with the most contaminated one taking precedence. If all of the targets are unavailable, the creature will target the nearest Guardian. If the creature does not reach its target, the token remains active until the next Nightfall phase. When the tokens in the bag are gone, the creatures move to the closest target, Guardian, Citadel, and Blood Temple. If the creature successfully engages the target, remove the creature target token from play at the end of the attack. After all creatures activate, the players will again take their turns in the same way as they did in the Dawn phase. Once the players are finished taking their turns, daily fame rewards are given out. The player with the most daily fame points draws 2 cards from the daily fame rewards deck and chooses one activating its effects. Many of these daily fame reward cards benefit multiple players, so players should choose wisely so as to not help out their opponents too much. After the rewards are dealt out, players will determine the new play order based on the daily fame track, with the highest player going first next round. Players will then reset their score on the daily fame track back to 0, adjusting it for any effects that may modify it, and after this, a new Dawn phase begins. The game can end in 5 different ways, 4 ways with 1 player winning, and 1 way with all players losing. If at any time all the citadels and blood temples are fully contaminated with 3 dark filaments, all players immediately lose. There are, however, 4 ways to win. At the end of the 9th day, the Guardian with the highest fame score will win the game. Their fame score is their daily fame points plus their Citadel Alliance points. If players are tied, the Guardian with the most coins of destiny is the winner. If players are still tied, the player with the least dark contamination cards is the winner. Players can also win by becoming one with the darkness. Some of the dark contamination cards allow the players to become absorbed by the leader of the hunt. A player may reveal this card when they defeat the leader of the hunt, gaining control of the creature. Their guardian is no more, and they are now the leader of the hunt, and they must do the darkness's bidding. They will get rid of their daily fame and Citadel Alliance points along with their character sheet, and they will continue playing using the creature rules with the following exceptions. They will participate in the Dawn phase, but they will always go last. At the start of each Nightfall phase, they will draw a Dark Contamination card, though their hand limit is still tied to their Wisdom stat of the Absorbed Guardian. Absorbed Guardians do not use the creature target tokens, instead they get to choose what their target is, still moving 3 zones like a normal creature. If the darkness wins by contaminating all the citadels and blood temples, the leader of the hunt wins. Though if a guardian dies when they are the leader of the hunt, they are removed from the game.
Okay, remember a while back when we talked about this winter mountain and how we'd come back to it and its 2 entrants at the end of the video? Well, we're finally there.
If you enter this side of the Winter Mountain, you are entering Batel's Monolith and you are trying to free the Shadow Shaman Moash. To do this, you will need to have 3 Sigil Stone relics and you will need to complete a 4 difficulty trap check, resolving the trap in a normal way by flipping over a Dark Contamination card. If you fail the check, you will receive 1 harm for each missing symbol. If you pass, you have freed Moash and you win the game. The last way you can win is on the other side of the Winter Mountain, where you can attempt to purify the priestess. To save the priestess, you will need to battle the darkness inside her. The player fights her like any other creature. You will flip a creature attack card, and her health is equal to how many priestess tokens are still on the game board, plus the number added here on the creature attack card. And the damage she deals is equal to how many Nightfall icons are visible on the game board, plus the number on the attack card here. The player will win the game only if they defeat the darkness and survive the battle. If both the darkness and the guardian die, the player goes back to their blood temple per usual, and the priestess is still corrupted and the player does not win and must try again. And that is all the ways you can win in Darkest Doom.
Darkest Doom is a big fantasy game with a whole bunch of different paths to victory. Do you join the darkness by being absorbed by the leader of the hunt? Do you try and save the priestess? There's so many things to consider and choose, and there's a bot to run the guardians if you have less than 4 players, or even if you want to tackle this behemoth in solo play. If Darkest Doom seems like a game you want to sink your teeth into, make sure to check out its page on BoardGameGeek to learn more. And until next time, I've been Nick Murphy. We're here with BoardGameGeek, and that is how you play Darkest Doom. Have a great day.